All right, now let's look at status. So again, status is one of the three filters that we use to develop meaning around a certain event. So the reason we're going to learn all these frameworks here is so that we can design status, we can design a status dynamic around our touch point so that when our person comes into contact with that touch point, it will be interpreted as something that is going to benefit or move them towards their desired position on the status hierarchy. So whether we want to raise it or lower it, we're going to position our event as something that's going to help them get there. Later on, I'll talk about how we're not going to engage with people who want to lower their status. We're not out there to lower people, but we are going to be helping those people who want to raise their status. So an example is, let's say the event is that I offer you the opportunity to go and speak in front of a large crowd. If you're trying to raise your status, then you're going to develop a very different meaning about that event than if you're trying to lower your status. And based on whether you're trying to raise or lower, the event of me offering you to go and speak in front of a large crowd is going to generate different feelings, which is going to cause a very different decision in both people. So yeah, let's take a look at how to work with status. So first, there's 4 principles of status. First is that status is relative. So it's always me in the relative context. No, that's not what I mean by contextual, but me in the relative context of another person, me within the group. If it's just me by myself, or if it's me with a group I don't care about, then there is no status dynamic at play. Status is also contextual. My status in a certain group can be totally different than my status in a different group. How I view status can be very different in that group versus the group I'm in right now. Yeah, or status is either sought or maintained. So status, we either seek to raise and lower it, or we seek to maintain it. If we seek to raise and lower it, then we can have some status dynamics at play. If we're just seeking to maintain it, then there's not much we can do. There's not much status we can work with. The other stuff still might be in play though. So recall the normal distribution curve I talked about earlier. Early adopters, mainstream, and late adopters. Turns out if you take a normal distribution of how people want to behave with their status, we'll get a similar distribution. We get people who want to raise their status, people who want to maintain, and people who want to lower it. And then if you place that on top of the distribution curve for adoption behavior, then you get a very similar alignment. People who want to raise their status, so let's say the culture is technology. People who are early adopters of technology are typically wanting to be raising their status within that culture. Within the group of technology, I'm gonna know what is the best model, the newest features, so that when I talk to it with my friends, I'm able to bring these ideas and I'm able to gain that little bit of status just by being an early adopter. So mainstream tend to be more maintaining, and then late adopters tend to be more lowering status. And again, we don't engage with the late adopters simply because they're not looking for change, and we're not trying to force anyone to change, and also because they're looking to lower their status typically, and we're not trying to put anyone down. Last principle is that status is self-perceived. So there's going to be the status of how we perceive ourselves. So my status in this culture should be here, in this group should be here. And then there's the status of how I perceive, they perceive us. So I think that my status here is perceived as this. So what I think the group thinks about me. So based on this point, the self-perception, we get into these 4 quadrants. I believe my self-status is high. And I believe that others perceive me as high. That would be quadrant 1. Or I believe others perceive me, or I perceive myself as low self-status, and others perceive me as low status. That would be quadrant 4. So we have high self, low self, high perception, low perception. And based on where you are in this quadrant, it's going to determine whether you want to move up or down or maintain. So obviously if it's matched, it's typically going to be more maintained. If there's a difference, then we're going to want to raise or lower. So first question to ask yourself, and we'll get into more detail with the next module in the actual exercise. Where are they on this curve? Do they want to shift up? Do they want to shift down? But turns out, again, we get this normal distribution, so we're going to be working mostly with people who want to move themselves up. Next framework is people either raise or lower in two ways. So this is how you know whether they want to shift their status or they want to maintain it. This diagram right here. And this is how you know whether they want or how they want to shift it. So this is how. So I want to raise my status by enabling others, or I want to raise my status by enabling myself / demeaning others. So one way to raise is to push other people down. Not very effective, and we won't be engaging with that behavior either. But this is a mindset category of certain people. We just won't be engaging with that. So the two mindsets that we're going to care about are we going to enable others, or are we going to enable ourselves, our team, our people? All right, so examples of people who raise status by enabling others, people like Gandhi, people like Jesus, Mother Teresa, they're out there, they're raising other people's, or they're enabling other people, and as a result, they raise status. Not to say that that's the reason they do it, but this is the behavior that, or this is their behavior that raises it. People that enable themselves, I'm sure you could think of a lot of ideas, or people who try to lower their status by enabling others, or people who try to lower their status by enabling themselves or demeaning others. Again, we're not really working in this quadrant here, so we really care about this. Okay, so now let's say you shifted. How do you know if you're actually making progress? It feels good to enable others, and it feels good to enable ourselves, but how do we know if that's actually making progress? Well, affiliation and dominion is two different ways we measure status. So this is me affiliating, this is me measuring my status by looking around me and seeing who I affiliate with. Hey, this is the group I'm a part of now. Therefore, my affiliation, my status is up. Dominion is who I have power over, me compared to others, how I stand up, my resources versus theirs. So this person would see status as, okay, who are the competitors I'm crushing? Who are the ones who are ahead of me? Who are the ones who are below me? That's how they would measure status. So this is who am I around? This is who am I beating? So it's totally possible that the way I shift my status is to enable myself, but then the way I measure it is that I am more affiliation based. So for example, if it's like politics, I am trying to enable myself, get the seat, it's a zero-sum game, but the reason I want to do it, the status, or the measurement, is that at the top I'm affiliating with all these important people. And so that's what I use to measure my status success. And then we have, like, for example, people who enable others, but they really care about dominion. So I am like trying to help people so that my company can get more money, so that I can beat the other competitors or something like that. And again, our perception of how we want to raise or lower, how we want to measure status is going to change based on the context. I might be at a charity gala, I might be like happy that I'm surrounded by all these great people. I'm like looking at affiliation. There I'm making donations and enabling others so that I look better and raise my status there. But let's say I was an athlete who's at this charity, and now when I go onto the field, I care more about dominion and beating the competitors, and I do it by enabling self and things like that. So that's status. Obviously, once you understand status dynamics, then we can create an event, or we can design that event, understanding these status dynamics, so that we can help people get to where they want. And remember, we started with early adopters, and we know that early adopters are looking to raise their status. So now we want to understand how are we going to help them create a meaning that engaging with this, with what we have to offer is going to raise their status.